Welcome back to He's Building a Team of Giants! Somebody stop him! According to the latest reports, as of recording from our boy Fabrizio, Arsenal will soon advance into further talks with Spanish midfielder Mikel Merino. Now Emile Smith-Rowe is making his move to Fulham. While we need to agree a price for him, one suspects if Arteta wants him, he'll get him. Before we do any of the other stuff, the deal, how he fits in, all that sort of stuff, who is this Mikel Merino bloke? For those who don't know. Mikel Merino is a footballer, you'll be glad to hear, who's just turned 28 and plays for Real Sociedad in La Liga. He came through the ranks at Osasuna and spent time at Dortmund and Newcastle under Rafa Benitez, meaning he already has 24 Premier League appearances under his belt, before finding his feet at Sociedad when he moved back there in 2018, and is now their third captain behind Oyarzabal and Elizondo. He's played 28 times for Spain, and of course scored the crucial goal against Germany to send Spain on their way to winning the European Championships. He's won the DFB Pokal with Dortmund, the Copa del Rey with Sociedad, both the U19 and U21 European Championships, as well as the Senior One and the Nations League. He was also in the La Liga Team of the Season in 22-23, alongside the likes of Modric, Valverde and Pedri, and ahead of the likes of Cruz, Camavinga and Dani Ceballos. If you're unexcited by the name, I get it, but he's hardly here because he won a competition on the back of a cereal box. First, this guy is a joke in the air and in the duels. In terms of aerial duels in Europe's top 5 leagues, he's winning 5.94 duels per 90. That is the most for a midfielder in Europe's top 5 leagues with over 5 90s played in the last 365 days. Not second best, not only in La Liga, the best in Europe's top 5 leagues. And in terms of overall duels won on the ground, in the air and so on, Merino is comfortably first in Europe as well when compared to the top 7 leagues. The others are separated by 1, 5, 10, and he's out in front by 29. While it is funny to imagine Mikel has picked Merino up by Googling most duels won in Europe and clicked on the first link, the more serious point before we come to his other qualities is let's consider the ripple effect of adding the best dueler in Europe into our already extremely competent second ball team that conceded the least goals in the league. We have to caveat with play style. From what I've seen, Sociedad really lean into the midfield duels as opposed to going long, for example, but it's exciting. His technique and usage of his body is really good. And though his 6'2" frame helps, he just wants the challenge. Time and again, he's able to maneuver himself to a position through clever footwork, then overpower you with excellent timing on the leap and use of his arms. While watching Youssouf Fofana, another midfield target a little bit earlier on in the summer, you see a more vertical passer than a Merino, but someone who shies away from those crunching challenges in the middle from a long ball. And his aerial capacity also helps us going forward. He has an excellent knack of drifting in on the blind side of the defender and finding separation in the box between the right fullback and centre-back, where he gets a lot of joy. He scored 8 goals last season, 3 of which were headers, so what he did in that game against Germany should not have come as a surprise to those who know him. Ødegaard, White and Vieira finding him from the half spaces. Let him cook. On the ball, and some of you aren't going to like this, Merino reminds me of a less angle-biased and probably more technically gifted Granit Xhaka. Xhaka, I would say, is probably more obvious on the eye in the middle third than Merino is, with those little balls around the corner and the ideas he has. Especially now, if you watch Xhaka for Switzerland and Leverkusen, you see how the game almost flows through him more. And I would say Xhaka is a bit more stable than Merino in terms of his engine and stamina. But Merino, I think, has more of a goal threat than Xhaka, and is obviously better in the duel. So maybe they're nothing like one another. Joking aside, the reason I bring them up is obviously the left-footed midfielder comparison, yes, but more the quality in the knitting play together. What Merino does so well, as Xhaka does, or did, is the really simple stuff in build-up in the middle third. Short 5-yard passes, linking, drifting on the blind side of a midfielder to create a pocket of space, dropping to attract a marker for a give and go. He's just very intelligent. He's also as adept as Xhaka was, in my view, at pulling wide in the final third, facilitating for a left winger and left back, as Xhaka did in 22-23, but maybe can find himself more in the pocket than a Xhaka, who probably preferred to be behind play a touch more, contributing to that slight extra goal threat. In terms of fixing our left-hand side, if that's what we want to call it, Merino could be the glue for a more obvious, punchy Calafiori and a new left winger, if that's what the club choose to go for. Couple of other things. He can do that reception in the pocket that I'm always calling for, receiving high in the block and turning, then immediately making that pass forward, showing us that typical Spanish pedigree. I love how early he finds runners. He doesn't want 50 touches every time he gets it. He wants to link and be progressive. I don't think he's the quickest, certainly over long distances. I do worry about his capacity to play 90 after 90, like a Xhaka. Does seem to fatigue towards the end of games in a way Xhaka didn't. And of course, there's the adaptation question, as always. But I think his brain is really good. He sees pictures. He has encouraging numbers for tackles in the attacking third too, indicating an ability to stop attacks early, which I haven't seen yet while watching him, but I want to keep an eye out for. Should we have just kept Xhaka? It's one to debate. With a total of 12 games missed in the last 3 seasons and a year left on the deal, you can see why the profile appeals. If you want more thoughts on him, you can check out this video on the Canon podcast for a full hour of scouting with clips. He's not the world's best player. He's not going to catapult us over Madrid, Bayern, City, PSG, and so on. But for the likely price and wage demands, good pick. Okay, you could leave it there and just judge Merino in total isolation. I think he's a good player, therefore it's a good transfer. Done, see you next time. But I think we both know there's a little bit more to discuss here as we enter August about how Merino fits into the wider context of what we're doing this summer. Brief detour, stay with me. In his brilliant book, Sapiens, Yuval Noah Harari expertly lays out the history of our species. I know it's one of those books that your pseudo-intellectual friend, hello, tells you to read, but trust me, it is actually really good. One of the many things he argues that has made humans so successful is that we have a unique ability above other animals to collectively create and believe in stories, myths, and ideas. An example of that working, he gives, is money. A £5 note can only function as a £5 note if we all collectively believe that it is worth £5. The plastic itself isn't worth £5. They take about 7 or 8p to manufacture. So our collective belief that £5 is worth £5, and by extension that Amazon stock is worth something and so on, is the basis on which you build entire financial systems. Humans are, by nature, narrative-making machines. We naturally want and make things make sense. And this is where I bring this back to football. I find myself tempted to do that with the Merino signing, and I'm suspicious. I think a couple of years ago, I would have weaved you a yarn here and gone, yeah, all makes sense. Got it, I see the vision. Merino is not blocking the path for Ranieri. Maybe the Cronkies are done with us spending so much every summer. This is the perfect signing, actually, because we need a bit more experience. He's the perfect stopgap as we wait for something next summer, and so on and so on. And I don't necessarily disagree with those arguments for. I think he'll be a success. I think he'll be good for Ranieri. I think he's a plug-and-play left 8. Cool. But I think if that was my full analysis, that would be me after the event, looking to reverse engineer a story to make this make sense. Because, to be honest, while there's a long way to go and this could all be blown out of the water, this isn't the type of signing I was hoping Arsenal would be making this summer. On a personal level, and maybe you agree, this just isn't the level of midfielder I wanted us to bring in. That doesn't make it the wrong move necessarily, it's just that judging it, for me, massively depends on a lot of other factors that we, don't yet know. I don't know how to feel about it yet, is my honest answer and the bottom line. And I don't know isn't code for I don't like it. It's not code for I don't trust the club, because I do. It is simply that. I don't know yet. Neutral. There will be people watching this who are saying, oh, you're just being negative for click's sake or something. But trust me, there is no incentive for that. Positivity sells on the sort of content I do. Go and look at my YouTube views when we're winning and look at my views when we're in a poor run of form. Chalk and cheese. If I titled this video, Merino is the perfect Arsenal signing and explained all that why, it would probably get 80, 100k views because it's a transfer and it's good news. But I'd be lying. However, I absolutely could be convinced out of my neutrality over the next few weeks. If Merino is part of a summer where we go and fix the skills gap I've outlined elsewhere many times in the team, particularly in the front line, I think it's a potentially brilliant signing. Truly. Maybe the third pillar midfielder isn't available this summer, in which case you go and do a deal that makes sense to close the skills gap in midfield as much as you can without it. Alongside Rice and Ødegaard as the 2 pillars are a rotating cast of Vieira, Ranieri, maybe Havertz, Jorginho, Partey, and now Merino, all making it work in different games. I think Merino is different enough to those guys and will get a lot of minutes, taking the physical burden away from Rice, adding experience. More of a linker profile I think we've missed, which helps with our mid-block issue, playing higher up and receiving, can play 6 and 8. Good purchase if we don't see the future of the position on the market. But if Merino is part of a summer where we don't do anything really serious elsewhere, but especially in the forward line, which if we're to go off links is becoming an increasing possibility, we don't close that skills gap up top, we lose Eddie, Reece and Emil, then we needed to move the needle somewhere, and it's another outlay that doesn't do that. It's a decent buy, I like him, but I could have given you other ways to go into the market and address the midfield that I think do move the needle. Desiree Doué, Eberechi Eze, João Neves, Dani Olmo, even Fabian Ruiz. That's my subjective view of the players, that they're higher quality. And if you disagree, that's fine. But if Merino is an elite midfielder with a year left on the deal, why isn't every club in Europe after him? The problem is, neither I nor you know which scenario we're in. So I feel stuck knowing how to analyse the deal side of this. For me, there are buys in the summer that you do that are good regardless of what else you do. Rice is a perfect example. And there are buys that are contingent on what else you do. And this is one of them. Merino's a good player who will look better in our system, I bet. But is he the rocket fuel that gets us over the line? Maybe you'd say, that's not him, we have to wait for that. There'll be people saying, I need to be patient and wait till the window ends. But that's exactly my point. We can't yet judge this signing without knowing what we're about to do. It all comes back to this. Do we want to beat Pep next season in 24-25? There'll be some people watching who are comfortable waiting until summer 2025 to find that pillar midfielder forward. And that's fine. But I personally want to beat Pep now in 24-25. Maybe I'm expecting too much. That's possible. At the beginning of the summer, as you can go back and watch, I had high expectations and felt the club would go big. But I think I was at least justified in extrapolating out that that's what they do from the clues that we had. The commercial revenues, Josh's comments, the money in the league, the UCL revenue, Mikel's comments, how close we came. Sure, maybe there's some entitlement here. Maybe you think I was being unrealistic. But even if you disagreed, I don't think I was basing expectations off nothing. There's no indication, no precedent that Arsenal would do something big this summer. And maybe they will. But till then, I can't judge Merino. I think it's very easy to be smart after the fact and say you knew the plan all along, but I don't. And I have to tell you what I feel. And I'd love to hear what you think in the comments down below. I hope, obviously, I move from neutral to positive about this signing. Patience, of course, is needed, and I hope the club can deliver. Finally, if you're happy with the window as is, and I've seen some people that are, you say it's only a 2-point gap, what are we worried for? We scored our record amount of goals and so on. Great. Genuinely good for you. And I'm not being sarcastic. Genuinely good for you. But I do want to ask a few questions. Are you confident we have that moments player in our squad now? The one the club have been explicit about themselves. Are you sure if this was all the business we did in the window, it would be the most we possibly could have done, we've maxed out, to improve? Are you confident we've improved our box efficiency? The box efficiency Mikel himself says we need to improve upon with our internal solutions, maybe Martinelli. Are you confident we beat Madrid, Barca, Bayern, City, PSG in a Champions League semi-final with the window so far? We scored the most amount of goals, but is it about goal volume or finding someone who can force the issue? A player who is a force of nature. Order does not equal priority. Let's be patient, absolutely. But until the rest of the window plays out, I'm still unsure whether Merino makes sense on its own or if we need to now make it make sense. If you like The Different Knock, you can support us on Patreon monthly or you can buy us a coffee.